Good morning, friends. It's 10 a.m. I have showered, eaten, all of those things. I love to just get my gym stuff, get ready, do everything before I sit down at my desk so that it's work time. I can switch on and I don't have to be thinking, oh, I need to go to the gym later, if that makes sense. When you work for yourself, building structure is so important. I work 10 to 5. I can be a little more lax with that sometimes. And if I'm busier, I might also be a little bit stricter. It kind of just depends on the way that my week's going. Before I get into telling you guys a little bit about me and how I got into this and stuff, I just wanted to let you know that the video is going to be kind of structured in chapters, I guess. The first half will be me just showing you guys what I do every day. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to do a Q&A because I get so many questions about just the nitty gritty, how do you get clients? How much should you charge? All of the questions that you would most likely have when you're watching this will be answered at the end. So the first thing I need to do is download the footage. This is what it looks like when I get sent footage from a client. And just so you guys know, I am gonna block out client names and also their faces. I'm just gonna blur. I communicate with all of my clients via text message, and they will send me a Google Drive link that looks like this. So the heading will say what the video is usually, and then if it's a multiple day vlog, for example, like this one, they will organize the footage for me so I know exactly what footage correlates to which day, because a lot of the time when you're a YouTuber, you obviously try to film on your camera, your main camera, but a lot of the time it's easier to just whip out your phone, or they might have multiple cameras. So this structure really helps me understand how I can piece together the video. While the footage is downloading, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about how I got into this, because I kind of fell into this freelance career path. I did go to uni. I went to uni for media and communications. I did a semester on editing, but it really wasn't super practical. If your goal is to be a freelance video editor, I don't think a degree is at all necessary if it's what you want to do. Obviously, I fully support degrees, getting educated, but it's definitely not necessary. I think I learned so much more once I left uni, and I kind of taught myself, did online learning courses, just practiced as well. That's kind of how I fundamentally learned how to edit. When I left uni, I did work full-time for 9 months. Didn't last very long because that is just not for me, but I learned so much on that job. I was a content producer, so I would say 80% of my job was editing, but then also I gained the basics in graphic design, audio. I was editing podcasts as well. And it's funny because a lot of that has come back full circle, because now not only do I edit videos for, big YouTubers, TikTokers, influencers, but also I do thumbnails and podcast editing as well. So it's just funny to look back on, because I'm kind of back where I started. I'm just getting paid more and working for myself. Once I left that job, I did about a 3-year stint, just part-time at an agency, working again as a video editor. And it was at that time when I started my YouTube channel back in 2020, and obviously built up this channel, which was a huge passion of mine. And when you're doing something like this, you learn so much on the job. During that time, I think 3 years into that part-time job, I reached out to a YouTuber who I saw, she was hiring an editor, and I sent her what I think is a really great email. We'll talk about pitching and stuff at the end as well. And she really vibed with me and the video examples that I sent her. I did a trial for her, got that job, quit my job, and started full-time, or not full-time, but started freelancing as a video editor. And from there, I kind of built up my client roster and built up my experience. And now I'm almost 2 years into freelance and I'm thriving. I love it so much. And if this is something you want to do, you can do it. So once the footage is downloaded, I literally just drag it into my Final Cut timeline. I am not going to be going through basics like that. If you want to learn, how to set up a project, how to learn the basics of Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, I'm going to talk about some resources later, but that's not what this video is going to be. I just want to show you guys what I do. So my clips are in the timeline now, and the amount of clips that a client sends, it really does just depend on the video. If it's, a multiple day vlog, it might be really long. If it's something more chill, like a night routine, the clips will massively vary, and that goes for the length of all of the clips in the timeline. So for example, this video is sitting at approximately 51 minutes of raw footage. Once I have this all in, now we get to the first stage of editing, which is called the rough cut. The rough cut also massively depends on what video you're filming, but I would say a good estimate would be that a rough cut will take me between 1 and 3 hours, depending on the video. A rough cut is basically when you are choosing which parts to ditch and which parts to keep in the video. So this is not when we get creative. This is not when we add titles or text or music or zooms. This is literally just when we go through and cut out the fluff. This is basically creating like a framework for your video. My general rule with a rough cut is I'm pretty brutal, especially with the clients that I'm currently editing like this video for right now, because I know that that's what they want. They don't want me to try and figure out what they want in the video. They are very happy for me to just be like super decisive, and if there are any parts that I cut out that they actually want in the video, they'll always just come back and tell me. So I don't feel afraid to cut out anything that maybe is a little boring, or maybe they ramble on for too long. With my clients, I really like to try and create the most engaging videos possible, because obviously I'm just an editor for them, but also I really want their channels to thrive. Knowing how to edit technically is one thing, but then also being able to edit specifically for social media content is another thing altogether. The rough cut is done. That took me 1 hour and 35 minutes. The thing about rough cutting that I feel like people don't realize is that it's not very creative. Like, the most creative thing that you have to do is, I guess, make creative decisions in terms of what you're keeping in and what you're removing. But I don't think you have to be like a particularly skilled editor to do a rough cut. Where the skill comes in is in the next part. I don't have a name for this next stage of the editing process, but basically this is when I go through and I start adding the finer details, I guess, which would be like the zooms, sound effects, and any titles. This part is definitely my favorite part of editing because it is the creative part, but it's also the part where your skills really show, like good or bad. So if you don't have, maybe you're not as skilled as an editor yet, this is where you really need to practice. One of my most asked questions when, I mention what I do in a YouTube video or in real life is, how did I gain these skills? How did I learn how to do this? I've spent so much time learning things online. Let me show you some of the courses that I recommend, because it genuinely will help you so much. The first class that I recommend for you guys to get started with your editing journey is this one, Video Editing in Final Cut Pro Beginner's Guide. This guy is a filmmaker and YouTuber. It's a 2-hour class and it literally goes through everything you would need to know. This one is specific to Final Cut Pro, so I've also found another one. This one is called Learn to Edit Videos in Adobe Premiere Pro Fast, from Beginner to YouTuber. This guy is also a professional editor and YouTuber, so again, he has that experience. In case you guys haven't heard about Skillshare, they are the largest online learning community for creators, with thousands of classes led by industry pros across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and of course, video editing. You can actually click the link down below and get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, and the first 500 people to click that link will be able to get that offer. Go and learn, there's no catch. Teach yourself how to edit and really kickstart your freelance journey. And thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Okay guys, that part of the video is done. I actually normally add the music right at the end. Like, I will do the fine tuning like I just told you guys, and then I'll go back and do the music right at the end. But for some reason today, I just decided to do the music as I went. Also, sorry that I didn't film much of that, but it's hard for me to show you the zooms and titles and stuff without showing you my clients, and I really want to respect them and their privacy. So once I have this structure, which is basically the finished video, I just do a rewatch and I make sure that everything is to the standard that I like things to be. So I don't want there to really be any mistakes. Obviously mistakes happen, but it kind of shows if you don't rewatch your content. So I rewatch it, make sure it's all good, and then we're ready to export. Video is all good, so I'm gonna export it by clicking export, who would have thought, and I'm gonna save it to my client hard drive. So once the video is exported, I drag it into this app called Frame.io. I pay for this. It is such a good system. Like, I'm so happy this was invented. It's just a place where you can store your content. But what happens is, as the client watches the video, they will leave comments on the side of the video, and they're time-stamped. Obviously, a part of the job is being able to change things that they might not like. So in my contract, I believe I have 3 rounds of revision. So I send them the first, version, they'll watch it, and from there they can come back to me 3 times and ask for changes. So what I like to try and do with them is get them to just leave all of their revisions in one go. Then I'll make changes, send it back, and then it just like makes sure that they kind of don't go over that 3 changes if they leave it all in one. Literally now the only thing to do is share the link with the client and send that off to them. The client that I'm working for, they are based in the US, and it works so beautifully because I send them off the video while they're asleep, and then when I'm asleep, they usually leave their feedback. But why don't we jump into the Q&A, and I'll answer your most frequently asked questions when I post, day in the life of an editor videos on TikTok, or if I'm mentioning it in a YouTube video. I always get similar questions. I thought a change of scenery might do us all some good. I have been sitting at that desk all day. The first question, I've touched on my experience, but the main thing is, how would someone get started with this career path? I think my biggest tip is be really proactive about it. If you know that in the next year you might want to move freelance as an editor, or I guess you can apply this to like if you want to be a graphic designer or something, but let's just talk about editing. When you're at your current job, really try and be proactive. So start to follow a bunch of YouTubers and influencers that you guys might want to work for. Join Facebook groups. I actually found my first ever client through this, such a random thing, but it was this Facebook group for a film and television school that I did a short course at like years ago in Sydney. And she actually posted on that group and was like, "Hi, I'm blank, I'm looking for an editor." And I actually got the job through that, which is so random. But there's so many other places as well. There's a really great website called ytjobs.com, and it's kind of like just a giant poster board full of people looking for editors, and then editors have their own pages as well. So it's like if you're looking for an editor, or if you're an editor looking for work, you can kind of find each other. I will say the thing about that website is that it's based on a system which does prioritize people who already have edited for YouTubers, because it has this weird badge system. So like if you have edited for someone with over 1 million subscribers, which I have, it gave me like a gold badge or something, which I think means that you rank like higher in search. So that is unfortunate, but like I said, I got that first job from that Facebook group, and I had never edited freelance for anybody before. So I think the main thing is build up a portfolio, start to look for clients, and look everywhere. Email everyone. Even if you don't hit back, shoot out emails. Just be really proactive and don't give up. I was looking for editing jobs for kind of half-heartedly, but for 2 years before I actually got one. So definitely don't give up. Keep practicing. The next question is, how do you actually lock in a client? So how do you pitch yourself? So my first tip is, don't just send them a generic email with the heading "looking for a video editor?" or "video editor proposal." What you want to do is really set yourself apart. I will show you a screenshot of an email that I sent to my first ever client that I booked. I thought it was just like a little bit more fun for me if I was looking for an editor, which I'm not, unfortunately, but if I was, I would want someone who was just like a little bit fun, a little bit out there, like sell yourself. I want to know that you're a creative, and nothing about video editor proposal is creative to me. The next thing I do is I lock in a call. So once they've written back and hopefully have expressed interest, you're not done pitching yourself yet. So I do a Zoom call with all of my clients, and I start off by just telling them a little bit about my background, like I have to you guys. I tell them about my own YouTube channel, which genuinely, having my own YouTube channel is a major selling point. So just know that. Maybe making content for yourself is like a great place to start, just as a side note. But I'll just tell them about myself. I'll show them some of my examples. Often they'll ask about my rate, and I am very, very transparent. I will say what my rate is on the call. I won't do the whole, "let me get back to you." But what I'll say is, I'll say, "This is my hourly rate. However, I'd love to put together a package for you. So why don't I edit a video for you for free? We'll do a little trial. I'll track my time. And from there, I'll let you guys know how long roughly I think each video is going to take to edit and what the package price of that video will be." Once I've done the free trial and hopefully they loved the content, then they'll often come back to me and say, "Hey, we want to work with you. Give me your quote." let's move ahead. And this is when I'll send them my little info sheet. I just have a sheet on how I like to work with my clients. This is all about setting boundaries, my ideal workflow, what they can expect from me, and what I hope to expect from them. And then I also send them a Google form, which has like just a questionnaire of what are you looking for in an editor? What kind of music do you like? Just to get a real understanding of how I can best serve them, because obviously I want to do a great job. I hope to work with my clients for like years. I just want to have consistency with my clients, and I know it's easier for them to have consistency with an editor as well, really learn each other's language. So knowing all of that stuff, what fonts they use, like literally anything, just a space for them to brain dump is really, really helpful. The next question is, how do you price yourself? This is a really tricky one to answer because it is so individual. It also depends on where you live in the world. But for me, I just Googled how much does a video editor get paid. I also at the time was working part-time. I knew what my hourly rate was there, and I knew that I wanted to make at least double that. So that was kind of my framework. When you're pricing yourself, you want to be sure to add at least 20%, like 20 to 30% on top of what you would be happy with as your take-home pay, because when you're freelance, you are going to have to start thinking about things like paying your taxes yourself, business expenses, you need to pay for your editing software, your music subscriptions. There's actually a lot of expenses. So definitely be sure to factor that in, because you do not want to be at a place where you're like, oh, my hourly rate's $50 an hour, and then you realize that actually you have a bunch of expenses and you can't pay your rent. There are 3 different ways that I've structured my pricing, and I'll go through all of them. So the first way that I mentioned before is an hourly rate. This is what I did when I first started, because I was coming off of part-time work, and that's what I got paid there, so that made sense for me. I felt like I was being punished for being a fast worker, because if a video took me 3 hours, I would literally get paid like $200 maybe. Whereas if I had charged per video, it would have evened itself out, but I think it would have been more fair to my skill level. So the next way is per video. So this is when you say, okay, one YouTube video will be $500. That's just an example. And that's what they pay every week. And some videos might take you 8 hours, but then some videos might take you 2 hours. And so like I just said, it generally evens itself out. And for me, it feels like a more fair way to pay someone. And also the client can understand exactly how much they're going to be paying each week, which was perfect. An issue that I found with both of the first systems was that a lot of YouTubers are visionaries, right? They're like, I want an editor. I want someone to edit my videos every single week. But what happens is that a lot of the time, YouTubers are really, really busy. Like big influencers get flown to X, Y, and Z for an event, or they get this crazy offer that they can't turn down, and then their YouTube or their content, TikTok, whatever, has to be the one that gets sacrificed, right? And what happened for me was that I was being guaranteed work. I literally quit my job for it. And then in the end, like most weeks, my first client was bailing because she had other things to do. And that impacted my income massively, because it was my only source of income, well, aside from YouTube at the time. So a way that I now get around this is I put my clients on a monthly retainer. It's basically the same as per video pricing. So the pricing itself doesn't change. In fact, I actually give them, I think it's like a 5% discount for doing the monthly retainer. But what it means is that on the 15th of every month, so the 15th of January, for example, they pay me my February retainer. The retainer guarantees them 4 videos and 4 thumbnails a month. Like I said, the pricing doesn't change, but what happens is if there's a week when they can't provide me with a video, that's their own doing. So if they have something last minute, they just couldn't be bothered, whatever, I still get paid for that because I have already been compensated the month before. And my contract is very specific. It's very clear that if they miss giving me footage, they have to pay for it. It's like paying for a gym membership and then not going. You're gonna be way more incentivized to be consistent and to actually show up on your YouTube channel every week for your editor every week if you've already paid for it, right? But I still get paid if they flake. The caveat is though, of course, is that if I flake, like if I'm sick or something like that, then I'll refund them that money. I'll just deduct it from the next month's pay. Like I'm not trying to fuck them over. I just have to set boundaries so that I can be guaranteed work. Basically the way that I explained it to them, which might help you guys understand, is like, you're not paying for my services, you're paying for my time. So every week I'm carving out a day or two to edit content for you. If you can't show up for that, I will still get paid, because that time that I've carved out that you've now not shown up for is significantly impacting me being able to work for other clients. I hope that makes sense. It might sound kind of brutal, I don't know, but my clients actually really understand and really respect it. I think having boundaries, who would have thought? People really respect, because they know where they stand, they know where I stand, and it means that we can just work harmoniously together. We both respect each other immensely. We respect each other's time, and it's changed the game. Do you need to have a contract? Yes, you absolutely need to have a contract. I just found like a template on Google, and then I tweaked it to, you know, add revisions and add my retainer stuff and like what happens if they miss a week and all of that. You absolutely need a contract. I know that when you're doing something creative, you can kind of feel like, oh, we don't need a contract because we're just like all creators, we'll just have a trust system. But at the end of the day, you are a business and you are the only one responsible for these systems. And I think even though the conversation might feel a little bit awkward, it might feel formal to ask someone for a contract, actually, like I said before, the client will respect it because it means that just there's no uncertainty. Everybody's clear and everybody can just move forward in a professional manner. So yes, you need a contract. Just Google a template. The next question is, are you able to make a living wage off of it? Yes, I get paid more freelance than I did at my full-time job, where I worked 5 days a week from 8:30 till like 6 p.m. and I work like 1 to 2 days a week. It's pretty nuts what you can make with this. I think don't go into it expecting to make bank straight away. Like I said, I've done this for years and I've spent so much time investing into this skill, but the kind of ceiling is pretty endless. It's very well paying. It is a lot of work and you do have a lot of, you know, business expenses and stuff to cover, but it's 1000% worth it. How do you know if you're doing a good job? Self-doubt and like imposter syndrome is definitely a part of this job. I felt it so strongly when I first started with my first client. Their content specifically was so tedious and very like they had a very specific niche and editing style, and so I had to match that style completely. And so I would feel very anxious about like, am I doing a good job? Is this gonna meet their expectations? But I do think generally speaking, if like you'll know if you're doing a good job because clients should give you feedback if they don't ask for it, and be prepared for anything. Constructive criticism is absolutely part of this job too. Like with that first client, we had so many weeks where back and forth, like they didn't feel like I could do what they needed done, and it's not because of my skill, it's because I'm not in their head. Like they had a very specific vision that I just couldn't meet, and that's part of this job too. But I think if you're unsure, ask. The final question is, how do you structure your life, and is it hard to find structure as a freelancer? It's definitely hard to find structure as a freelancer. It's probably my biggest struggle in my work life, is just like balance and structure. Like I said at the beginning, I am very good at switching off at 5. I think that's so important to have time to pour into myself, my hobbies, reading, going on walks, working out, that kind of stuff. So what I do is on a Sunday, I will go through my Apple Calendar and I will block out my time. So I'll be like, okay, Monday is gonna be my client day for this client. I'm gonna work for them 10 to 5. And then the next day I'll block out like an hour. That's when I do their revisions. And then I'll block out, you know, this is when I'm gonna film my YouTube video, and just do it that way. And I'm literally so intense with it that I'll plot out like, when am I exercising, when am I cleaning the apartment, like when am I seeing my friends. I put everything in my calendar because I don't have a boss or anybody telling me what to do, and I really do thrive on structure. And having worked in the full-time space before, while that job like was not for me, I did really appreciate the structure that it gave me. Every job has pros and cons, but for me personally, for my personality type, being a creative, the way that I live my life, having a slightly more unstructured life is absolutely worth the lifestyle that I get to live. And it's so worth it, and I would happily struggle with structure for the rest of my life to have the job that I have. I literally love it so much. And I guess to kind of round out this video, like just to kind of hype up this career, if this is something that you want, please do it. Like give it a go, upskill, get on Skillshare, learn how to edit. I really think anybody can do this. You don't need crazy equipment. You can literally edit on free software. Just like give it a go, because the freedom and just happiness and joy that this job has been able to bring to me and my life is just like insane. And I wish that everybody could experience this. And I know freelance really is not for everybody, so it's definitely something you need to heavily research and be sure that you can handle it. You know, it's not very social, so you need to be prepared to like be alone a lot. But in saying that, I've found so many friends who freelance. I recommend it so much. Like, I'm so passionate about it. If you can get paid more for doing less, why would you not? And also, you're the one that's responsible for everything, which again is not for everyone, but for me, I love being able to make decisions for myself and not feel like I'm just another cog in the wheel. And again, this is no shame to people who work full-time. Full-time jobs are incredible. Like, truly, so many of my friends love them. So many of my friends are high up in the corporate life and thriving, and I'm so happy for them. This is not for everyone, but for me, I felt like I was, you know, just another cog in the wheel, and that's why this makes me feel so happy. But if you don't feel like that, no shame to you. I just want to make that so clear. But I love this so much, and I just want you guys to understand that it is possible to like live out your dreams, and it's possible to do something that genuinely really does make you very, very happy and fulfilled and offers you freedom and financial freedom and all of this stuff. So I feel like I've just word vomited at you all day, but I do hope this was helpful. And if you do have any other questions, definitely leave them down below in a comment, or feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I get a lot of questions over on my Instagram DMs, so I'm happy to help you however I can. If you need advice or resources or anything like that, definitely let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you, and I will see you guys next week with a new video. Bye!